Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the first reading of Enhancing Identity Verification and Border Processing Legislation Bill. Mr. Speaker, before I speak regarding the bill, I would like to greet you in Mandarin and say ni hao, because this is the Chinese language week. And this one, and also, Mr. Speaker, I would also like to greet you in Hindi, because this week is also being celebrated as Hindi Language Week. So, namaskar for that. I would like to congratulate Satyadat, the President, and Parveena Prasad, the Secretary of Hindi Language and Cultural Trust of New Zealand, who have been very passionately working on this and celebrating Hindi Week for last many years. Mr. Speaker, this bill, I would like to congratulate the Minister for her leadership in bringing this bill to the House, and I hope that it will have widespread support from all the parties. As the previous speaker, Kelvin Davis, mentioned that Labour is supporting this bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, the technology is changing and we need to upgrade our technology as well as our bylaws so that we can take the advantages. As the example was given by Kelvin Davis, that previously the names were kept in the register to identify if someone was required under some offending. But now the technology has changed and people can be identified with biometrics and fingerprints. Mr. Speaker, ever since this government has come into power, we have continuously focused on the areas which have got concerns from the public. We have put in place legislations based on need, or as soon as we have realized that the amendments in the current process are needed to strengthen our system. This bill, in the name of Honorable Amy Adams, in another need-based legislation. The purpose of this legislation, Mr. Speaker, is to strengthen the power of our frontline so that they can verify or identify the offenders and provide this information to the agencies so that they can avoid any risk to the general public. The legislation, like many others we have introduced earlier, is part of our promise to deliver better public services. The need is for this bill, Mr. Speaker, arose from this government's inquiry into matter concerning the escape of Phillips John Smith from the prison. Mr. Smith was in jail serving a life sentence for murder, child sex offending, extradition, and kidnapping. Due to the lack of information sharing between the agencies at that time, Mr. Smith managed to plan his escape from the prison. Without doubt, Mr. Speaker, this showed that we need to improve our existing legislation. We need to improve on our failings around the adequate information sharing between agencies, along with the operational practices so that the dangerous offenders like Mr. Smith do not succeed to escape from the prison. Mr. Speaker, the main focus of this bill is to authorize specific agencies to access and use identity information, including biometrics information, to verify the identity of individuals within the justice system as well as at the borders. It is very important to understand, Mr. Speaker, that these agencies need to share these information so that a good support system can be provided. Clarifying the ability of the customs to collect, use, and disclose biometric information about persons arriving or departing from New Zealand is another important factor. Authorizing the sharing of birth, death, marriage, civil union, and the name change information with the specified agency for law enforcement purpose is again important so that we can upgrade this information of particular person. Mr. Speaker, the last point which I would like to emphasize on is that this means that this bill will help the mental health patients held under the criminal justice system and the Mental Health Compulsory Assessment and Treatment Act may not leave their hospitals or New Zealand without the permission because it can be dangerous for the safety of the public. With these words, I commend this bill to the House.
I call
Mr.
Jacinda
Speaker.